Hi, I decided I needed to get a little more line blocking terrain for my lava board, similar to this one here, and decided to do a volcano that's actually erupting, and thought I would just chronicle it here. I'm going to go with this same color scheme, you know, the blasted wasteland. However, you could do any color you want. The first step is to go through the scrap bin, because you don't need to do brand new fresh stuff on this, and pull pieces of foam, doesn't matter how thick. Okay, so I had to put my hands down, it was too hard to dig and look. So basically I've got a bunch of pieces here, and all I do is stack them up. I think that's probably a pretty good height, probably 2, 4, 6, about 8 inches tall. And these are just scrap pieces I had used in other projects. You could do it with a new fresh piece if you wanted. And then you just kind of stack them up, and the next step will be to glue them all together. Okay, the next step is pretty simple. It's just gluing these together, and everybody knows how to glue for the most part, so I'm just going to glue this up into a stack, and then I'll be back. Okay, just a quick thing. One thing I sometimes forget is a lot of these come with this plastic on it. Make sure you pull that out before you glue it. And one other quick thing to be aware of, remember some of them come with these, so just make sure when you're setting it up that you take that into account and that you glue it on with that off the side. Otherwise it makes some really funny looking divots. Alright, so here it is all glued up. Honestly, there's maybe an hour of time invested other than waiting for glue to dry and waiting for paint to dry. Things that you could do is do multiple spires. So you could have I could build something up here, or you could build it up here. Whatever your scraps kind of lead you to. The next step is going to be, once this glue has dried, just to carve it out into shape. I'm going to use a hot wire cutter, but you could use a knife. You could use most anything. The most important thing is to make sure that the glue is good and dry, otherwise it'll pull apart. Okay, so the next step in this is just to cut the shape now that it's all glued together. I'm going to use a hot wire cutter just because that's what I have and it's easy, but you could really use anything you wanted. So basically I just try to do odd shapes, and you just want to make it look sort of as mountainy as you can. And with the hot wire cutter it really becomes very random, but that's it. So you don't need to sit here and watch me cut this whole thing. So I will come back as soon as I'm done cutting it. You get the picture. You could use a knife, you could use a saw, you can use whatever works best for you. Just don't leave any flat spots. That's really the ticket here. Just one other quick thing though, if you want to eventually put this on a base, that's fine. I have about half on base, half not. I would go ahead and still do all my cutting, do all your cutting before you put it on the base, because as you're coming through, it's just much nicer to be able to come out the bottom, if this is whether you're using a knife or anything else, without having the wood there to deal with. Okay, so now it's formed. And you can sand it. I like just leaving lots of little jags and things so that when I dry brush it, it comes out. But next step is just to use some pliers and to pull out where the spout of the volcano. Doesn't have to be neat. You're going to fill it full of caulk anyway. And then anywhere you want to put little holes, you could have lava spouts coming out anywhere in your volcano. You can do that. I'm gonna have some lava dripping out right down here, I think, just because I had some problems with my wire cutter, and I got a little close there, so I'm gonna pull a little piece off right there. Now you can do the next couple steps in whatever order you want. You can put the caulk down, prime it all, or you can prime it, put the caulk down, then paint, or you can paint the volcano and then put the caulk down and paint the lava. I'm going to paint I'm going to prime first, and the reason I like to do that first is because that way I don't want the caulk to be painted black, because then the lava looks darker. It's just with the white caulk it's easier to make the lava look bright. And the other thing is, don't use spray paint, because that'll melt it. It might be an interesting effect on a volcano, but the propellant in the spray cans for spray primer will melt foam. Alright, one last thing before I get away from priming. Make sure that you turn it upside down and all kinds of sides, because, wow, like right down there you can see, we're going to be putting, or you put a bunch of contours in here, and you know, little crevices and stuff, which will look great when you dry brush it and paint it, but if blue or pink foam is poking through, not so much. So just make sure to look at it from every angle before you finish up and move on. Alright, so it's dry with the primer and the black, and the next steps are pretty easy. For me, it's just dry brushes of 3 successively lighter shades of gray. I just use acrylic paint. I grab whatever brand is the cheapest. At the craft store, usually you can find them on sale for 50 cents or so. So I just go with a dark, just look at the colors, the names don't really matter, and successively lighter. Or alternatively, you could use black and white and just mix in the shades. But if you're going for a different motif, rocks or greens or whatever, just use 3 to 4 shades of lighter colors. The first one will be a heavier dry brush, and then you'll do a medium sort of heaviness of dry brushing for the middle layer, and then a real light dry brush with the last couple. So to illustrate it, and I just use my paper here to dry brush it off of, but fairly heavy layer for this first one. As you can see, because it's such a dark gray, you really don't see a whole lot of difference. And because of the shade colors, the only other thing is I'd say be very systematic about where you do it. Go around or one side or whatever, so you know exactly where it's come from. So let me finish up this one. As you can see, very heavy dry brush. Let me finish this up and I will come back in a moment. Okay, here it is after about 45 minutes or so. As you can see, not a whole lot of difference. So I'm going to go on to the second coat of dry brush. It won't be quite as thick, but and one thing I've noticed is they darken as they dry, so don't have to be too worried. And the other thing don't forget to do the top. And then the other little thing is I try to go different directions with each layer of dry brush, so that you're not hitting all the same spots over and over. So let me finish this dry brush and I will come back later. Okay, I'm going to do the next round. I think I'm going to do 4 instead of the 3, just because of the colors. Just how dark that second layer became when it dried. Anyway, just a much lighter dry brush this time, and then I'll probably do a very light gray after this. Alright, so now it's time for the last dry brush. I'm just going to try and hit the high points, just where the light would reflect off. So real light, so you're just hitting those top edges. So when I'm done with this, I'll come back. Alright, so here it is, done with the dry brushing. And now for making the lava, and it's simple. Just I just use whatever cheap. This was Red Devil. I bought a big pack of it at the Home Depot or someplace, and not that expensive. Just doesn't matter what kind you get. So first thing is I just put some down into here, just so that there's lava in the right down in there and just use a little stick or something. And if you get little flecks of it in places, it really doesn't matter because it's just splashing lava. So, and then just use normal beads of lava going down the sides. Sorry about that, had a quick phone call. Now that that's in there, now you just do lava down the side. You just try to follow whatever kind of paths look like it might fall with the lava. It's just just little beads of lava coming down. It doesn't have to be too precise, because remember, this is a flowing lava. So here's that hole that I was going to do. So you're just going to have it come flowing out and just down the side. And the other thing you can do is any place that you had a big mistake, you can just cover it with some lava and it'll all be good. And this will take a while to dry, so I'll give it about 24 hours and then you can come back and paint it. Alright, so I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to touch it up a little bit and be back tomorrow. Okay, so I didn't like how that looked coming over, so what I did is I just took a knife, cut on either side of where I had it over it. Sorry, cut it on either side of where I had it over, and then I just rubbed the caulk over and covered the pink that started showing. I think that just looks a little better. So if you make the same mistake I did, that's how you take care of it. So the first round of coloring is done. You just do a quick bright yellow, and that will, after all the dry brushing of the orange, the red and the black, that will be the hottest layers of the lava. So next step will be to dry brush the bright orange. Okay, so the orange is done, and it's just a cheap, 50 cents a bottle craft paint. What I did was somewhere between a light regular brush and a really heavy dry brush of the orange. A lot of that's going to get covered up with the red and the black. Next will be sort of a medium dry brush of red and then a light dry brush of black. This is just a quick comparison of the red dry brush, halfway through, and the orange, just so you can see what the difference between the two as you go along. Here it is with the red dry brush completely done. Just don't forget to do the lava in the spout. But next step will be to do a light dry brush of the black. So here it is partially through the light dry brush of the black. I'll go through and do a little heavier. I've switched over to a regular brush and not one of the bigger brushes because there's going to be so little in here. But it's just a really light dry brush. You're just hitting all the high points so that it looks like there's congealed lava across the top. I'll time compress this and move on to the next step. Okay, here I just wanted to show a little bit of the dry brushing. Basically, you can go as heavy or as light as you want for as much of crust on top of your flowing lava that you think looks good. And you just can continue to go around, spin it, look at it from different angles, see how it looks, and then when you're happy with it, you're done. So this is probably the longest of the dry brushing steps, and it's just because you want it to look the way you want it to look. I did not base this particular one. I did base some others, and I've got an example I'll show in just a second. If you do want to base it before you caulk it, and that way you can have the lava flow onto the base, and basically you just put sand on the base and you paint it up. But I'll show that in the next clip, but I just wanted to make sure that I got that in here. Okay, Okay, so here's the finished Volcano, and if you want, you can base it. You just glue it down. I just sand and then, you know, dry brush through the same steps. However, I didn't want a base on this one. So anyway, that's just a quick, easy tutorial. You can use it for almost any kind of mountain hill that you want, and use a lot of that scrap stuff. So overall cost for this was about 10 cents or 20 cents plus time. Anyway, until next time, thanks.